Hi, and welcome to our second ever Yes Presents. My name's Finny, and this is my fellow young environmentalist, Saoirse. We're here today to interview Sam Havens, who works at the church. Sam, could you give a little introduction about yourself and what your job is at the church?
Sure. My name is Samuel Havens, and I am the workshop and residency manager at the church. In my position, I oversee our workshops that we have there, spanning from workshops with our artists, just other things coming in and out of the building, as I did with you guys, an outside organization, anything that really goes on the studio level, and as well as overseeing the residency program that we've really started to pick up over the past year, where we have artist residents come in from all over the world and stay and live with us and create art within the space at the church.
What is the church? Can you give us some background about this space?
Sure, absolutely. So the church is a creativity and arts center. It was founded by artists Fischl and April Gornick. It was founded in 2021. We opened our doors in April, actually. I believe 2 days ago we celebrated our second birthday being open to the public, so that was very exciting.
Wow.
And we host a variety of programs, events, workshops. We are primarily an exhibition space. We have art exhibitions that can focus primarily on the contemporary art period from 1945 through the present. But we have events, programs, anything relating to art and creativity, expanding upon it and building upon it, and really just bringing Sag Harbor as a community together, a space that everyone can gather and really be a part of.
I took a monotype workshop for students at the church in the fall, and I loved it. Can you explain how this process works?
Sure. So the monotype process, the session that you took in the fall, that was run by myself as well as my colleague Susan Batchman, who co-facilitates the workshops with me. And together we've put together a program outlining the monotype process, which is just one very small section of printmaking as a whole. The monotype process specifically, it's a great entry level to printmaking. It really gets you started, and it doesn't take a lot of background knowledge to get going. And monotypes are often referred to as the painterly print. It's more of a free-flowing process. You don't need a lot of technical skill ability to do it. It's a lot of fun to get started in, and the basic process of it is you start with a sheet of plexiglass. It's referred to as a matrix. You can use a sheet of copper or a sheet of zinc. I've used very thin sheets of mylar before, anything that's flat, that doesn't have any rigid surface that you can easily spread the ink across. And so once you have your plate, you have a variety of inks. You can use paints as well. And you spread the ink across the plate in a way that creates an image. And you can use textures, you can paint directly on it, you can ink the whole plate up and start to wipe away in certain areas. There's the two main methods are the reductive process, where you wipe away, and the additive, where you apply ink directly to the plate. And between the two, the possibilities of what you can do with this process are pretty much endless. After you've worked into your plate, you've placed your textures on, you can use natural materials as we used. You will head over to the press. At the church, we have an American French tool etching press, which works absolutely fantastically. It was donated to the church by Sean and Tamara McCarthy. They really bestowed a gift upon us that we cannot thank them enough for. But you head over onto the press, you put your plate on. Sue and I will very carefully place a piece of paper over your plate and very gently move the blankets back onto the press, and then we roll it through. And when it rolls through the press, it just puts a tremendous amount of pressure down on the plate. And when it runs through, it goes underneath the steel roller. When the steel roller presses down, it allows the ink on the plate to transfer onto the paper. And when it comes through the other side, your finished print is revealed, and the image transfers from the plate onto the paper. It's a really magical process. It's pretty amazing.
What do you think is special about this type of printmaking compared to other methods?
This method of printmaking in particular, it's unlike any other method of printmaking. Technically, with printmaking, the whole idea that started it was being able to create an edition. And you create a plate, and you can print, say, 500 exact copies of this plate. With a monotype, it's a one-of-a-kind print, and you're never going to be able to achieve that print again. Since you're painting onto a flat surface that doesn't have any ridges, it doesn't have any textures on it, it doesn't hold the image. Once you put it on there, once it goes through the press, that's it. It's transferred onto the plate, off of the plate, onto the paper, and it's a one-of-a-kind image that cannot be reproduced. And monotypes hold the highest value in that manner, in that they are a one-of-a-kind, unique image created by the artist. Very similar to a painting, you only have one of them, and it's really just a beautiful process.
After the workshop in the fall, I thought it would be a good idea for the Young Environmentalist Society to do this workshop because we could focus on nature and printing. We brought in things from our own collection, and you brought some too. What are your favorite things that you remember from that workshop?
Mostly working with natural material, just to see how everybody was able to invent their own way of working with the inks, incorporating the natural material. Nobody made a print that was the same, and it was really exciting to see everyone be inspired by one another. The way that one person would incorporate this material that would inspire someone else to do something similar, but build upon it and continue to create. It was really just a magical afternoon. It was incredible to see everybody so inspired, and it happens this way with a lot of the printmaking courses. The first couple of prints, if you've never done it before, you're not really sure how it's going to go. You hope you're doing it right. You don't know. You pull that first print off the press, and then you really start to understand the process, and you can develop and expand upon it and say, I really like the way that this came out. How can I build on that? How can I do a little bit more? And by the end of the class, the development in everybody's prints, it was just incredible to see. It was really amazing.
This is my favorite print. I like it because the two colors that I chose for this, they look very good together, and they kind of work together.
Absolutely. That is a beautiful print, and I love the incorporation of the leaves as the natural material, as well as the blue that really draws your eye out from the red and the green. They complement each other so incredibly well. And I really love, you can see if you look closely in there, the lines that are traced throughout. It really shows the white of the paper. And working into the paper is one of the things that printmaking has over painting, where you want to allow the paper to express itself. And you did a fantastic job with that print. Very proud of it.
I also brought one of my prints. It's a little bit bigger, but if you can see that. Let's see. That's one of my favorite prints that I've done.
It's beautiful. The background, the blending of the inks, really incredible. Really incredible, as well as incorporating the natural materials again. And I love some of these circles that you got in here.
Yes, thanks.
It's almost reminiscent of Van Gogh's Starry Night. It's really beautiful. And again, with the lines crisscrossing throughout, it draws your eye across the piece, and it really brings you into the work. It's really fantastic.
I also brought the ghost from that print. And can you explain a little bit of what a ghost is?
Absolutely. So when you first run your print through the press, your plate through the press, you generate a first print, and that holds the most ink. So the large majority of the ink comes off of the plate on the first pass through, and you get the most crisp, vivid image. On the second pass through, sometimes there's a little bit of ink left, and so you can put it in for a second pass, and it can drastically change the outcome of the print, even though it's coming from the same plate. Depending on which layers of ink got picked up off the plate first. If there were any underlying colors, it can drastically change it to be a whole new image. In some cases, it may just be a muted image, but a lot of people find that their ghost, they end up liking it even more than their original image. It's something that you can't do with any other process. There's no ghost of a painting. It's just a painting. It is what it is, and it's one of those things about printmaking where it just gives you a little something extra.
Do you have a favorite monotype printing artist?
I do, actually, and he's an artist who I was lucky enough to have worked with at one point. Thomas Masters, he's based out of Chicago, and I met him through Dan Weldon, who was a mentor to me. I was working at Dan Weldon's studio, and he said, Sam, you should really come by. You know, there's an artist coming out from Chicago, coming to do some prints. I think you would really like his work. And so I went out there. I thought I was just going to be kind of watching, seeing what was going on, and Dan tells me, hey, grab that piece of paper, we're going to print this. And next thing I know, I'm printing Thomas's prints. And he's primarily a painter, but as I said, the monotype is considered the painter we print, and the way that his practice transitions over to the monotype, it's absolutely beautiful. And he uses a very thin ink. He loosens it up with, I believe he was using oil-based ink, so he loosened it up with a little bit of oil, and what he did was he took a squeegee. Typically you would use it to clean a car window.
A squeegee?
Yes, a squeegee that you would use when you're cleaning a window, and he used that to spread the ink around. And the technique, that it was so beautiful to see him do it. I remember that there was the opera playing in the background on Dan's radio, and the way that he positioned his hands to spread the ink around the plate, it was absolutely incredible. And I highly recommend looking up his work. It's really beautiful. Just working with the squeegee and spreading the ink around, you get all these textures, all these patterns. It was really amazing, and I do think that he is my favorite monotype artist. It's
What's his name again?
Thomas Masters.
Thomas Masters.
What inspired you to become an artist, and what do you like most about art?
What inspired me to become an artist? I really just think that being able to express yourself, and there's certain things that you can't express other than your artistic practice. And one of the big things at the church is that we honor artists of all practices, spanning from writers to visual artists to dancers and choreographers, and everybody has that outlet. For me, it's visual arts and primarily printmaking, and it's just a way to express myself and put these things out into the world that I can't express through writing or through dance. A terrible dancer. But it's just something for me to really put it out there and to be able to collect my thoughts and put them in a cohesive manner and share it with everyone else and hear their insights about it. And there's something so beautiful and organic about it. It's really amazing. And that, to answer your second question, that's what I love about art, is that everyone's artwork, they have a different meaning behind it. Everybody comes from a different place, and their artwork is going to reflect a different point in their life. It's all evolving from something that happened to them, an experience that they had, something that they thought about that was in their mind and their subconscious. And it's coming out and they're expressing it through their work, and it's really beautiful.
Do you ever use contemporary approaches in your teaching of the monopress, the monoprint?
Here and there, I use it a bit more in my own work. It can get a little bit challenging, especially for a class of beginners, to incorporate some unorthodox techniques of working with digital media or other things. In my personal work, when I started off with printmaking, I went through the traditional, just working with acid and copper and zinc engravings, line etches. But my background at that point was in the digital field, and so I wanted to find a way that I can incorporate the digital practice into printmaking and incorporate these contemporary approaches that weren't previously available to printmakers. And I started doing photointaglio work, which was I was using these photosensitive printmaking plates. I would develop an image on the computer, usually based off of a drawing that I would do, and I would expose it onto this photosensitive plate using a digital process to get to that point, and then printing it as a traditional plate, meaning inking it by hand, bringing it to the press, running it through, and creating an image that started on the computer, went back to traditional, and then finalizes as a traditional piece that incorporates contemporary approaches.
Wow.
It can be a little bit challenging to teach to beginners, so I haven't yet gotten to that point where I'm able to incorporate it, but it's something I would love to start to build into. It's a great question.
Do you have any other areas of expertise?
So my background is primarily as a printmaker, but I also do a lot of bookmaking and artist books primarily. My printmaking professor was actually the person who introduced me to the incredible world of artist books. I went to school at SUNY Oneonta upstate, and my professor, Rhea Nowak, was the one who really changed the trajectory of where my career was heading. And she introduced me to printmaking and artist books, and those two approaches really transformed everything from there. Printmaking goes hand in hand with artist books and bookbinding, and the two they go together absolutely seamlessly. It's really an incredible practice if you ever have the opportunity to do it. It really looks into exploring the book as an artistic form and how the choices that you make during your fabrication of the book can influence the way that somebody interacts with it. How they flip the pages, how they open it, how they close it, the way that it feels in their hands. And it's so much more of an interesting experience for someone when they are physically present with the object rather than just looking at it on the wall. It's, so artist books, I would say that's my second area of expertise.
So obviously most people don't have access to a big machine like that. Is there anything you can do at home that will give you a similar result? It's not going to be perfect, but anything that will give you an idea of what your work could look like?
Absolutely. So in the simplest way to do it, I would say, is honestly just a rolling pin. If you have access to a rolling pin, it's the same principle. You're going to want to make your inks a little bit looser so that they're a little bit less likely to stick. If they're a little bit looser, it'll be easier for them to transfer. And you can even take a rolling pin and just press it down, especially with a monotype. It doesn't take as much pressure as, say, an etching would.
Yeah.
So monotypes are fantastic entry level with that, as well as a few other basic forms of printmaking that you can easily do at home, include just Technically, it's a relief printmaking process where it's similar to doing a stamp, and I've seen people use a potato where they carve into a potato.
Oh, wow.
And they carve it away, and they'll ink that up, and then you roll the potato across a piece of paper, and your carved image will print onto the paper. So there are certain techniques in printmaking that you can do at home. Makes it a little bit more accessible for people to really get their foot in the door and try it out.
Do you have any questions for us?
Sure. I would actually love to know, would you be interested in continuing this again if you ever had the opportunity in school or wherever else? If you had access to a press, is there anything, would you say, I would love to do that, I remember this? Or did it stick with you at all? Is it something you'd like to continue to work on and develop?
Definitely.
Yes.
I can't get over the fact, I just love how it's so unique, each print. Yet you get another one of that, and then that's it. It's one thing. And it's just, I don't know, something about it, for me, it's the first time you really get to, I think you told me this in your first, in the first class, that the first time you really get to see your print is when it comes out of the press. So even when you're making it, you don't know what it's going to look like 100%.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I would also like to continue doing that because you just make one. If it's gone, it's gone. If you make a mistake, you can just try to incorporate that a little more into your original description of the way you wanted it to come out. And if you made one that you didn't really like before, you could try to make a ghost print of it and make it different but still kind of the same.
Absolutely, and that's such a great outlook on it. One of the big things that my professor in college really spoke to us about was resolving your print, figuring out this area didn't work, how can I resolve it? Is it through layering another plate on it, or it's printed on this beautiful paper, why should it go to waste? We can build right back onto it using acrylic paints, oil paints, even colored pencil, and there's always something you can do to bring it back. You really just need to spend the time with it and look at it and say, okay, this is what didn't work, how can I resolve this piece? And it's just something that's so incredible.
What's the history of the printing press?
The history of the printing press, I'm sure a lot of people know. They cover this in basic social studies. Johannes Gutenberg created the first commercial printing press to print the Gutenberg Bible. And after that, it took about, I believe, in the next 50 years or so, they came out with the roller press, which is what we printed on. Obviously, about a few centuries of development after that, but that was the real principle of the printing press. Printing itself dates back to almost, I believe, around the 2nd century or so.
Wow.
Just doing woodblock printing and printing it by hand without the need for a press. Press has obviously streamlined the process down. It makes it quite a bit easier.
Yeah, it must have been quite revolutionary at the time.
It was, absolutely. It just allowed them to be able to create multiples and really be able to distribute it. And that's when literacy rates began to rise, when we could create multiples, distribute them accordingly, whether it's text, imagery.
Yeah. Instead of just scribes.
Exactly. It really was revolutionary.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to be here and to talk with you both. And it was really such an honor to have the young environmentalists come out to the church and be able to print with us. And Susan and I, we cannot thank you enough for coming out. It really inspired us to see the way that you all created and just really took to the process so quickly. It was amazing. Everybody left there with prints that we were just blown away by. We said, I can't believe that. That's amazing. It was really, really such an incredible day, and we were so glad to be able to have a part in it and be able to let you be able to access this experience. As you said, the press, it is something that's not always easy to get your hands on. There is a price point, entry-level fee, that it's not always accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have that opportunity and to share it with you all, it was really special for us.
It was amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Thank you again for having me on. It's wonderful.
All right, guys, that was awesome. Congrats.